In 1861, in a small village in America, sisters have been a massing of their home. The oldest one is Meg, the second is Joe, the Urusuro, 33 is Amy, and the youngest one is Beth. That night, Meg and Joe had deliberated to go to a dance birthday celebration at Maggie's friend's house. When Joe changed into doing Meg's hair, she by accident burned Meg's hair. Thankfully, her carelessness didn't reason a whole lot trouble. It changed into Joe's first birthday celebration. So Maggie defined the dos and don'ts on the birthday celebration. She must in no way communicate too fast, flirt, or praise the lads too a whole lot, and plenty of different rules. During the birthday celebration, Joe didn't do something except watching her sister dance together along with her friends. Differently from Meg's sleek nature, Joe's character changed into the precise opposite. She is tomboyish, careless, and introverted. Bored with the birthday celebration, Joe then searched for a quiet vicinity to take a break. She then met a boy named Laurie. It turns out that Laurie is the son of a wealthy own circle of relatives who lived in the front of Joe's house. The of them then communicate at duration approximately every different. Joe advised him that her father changed into at war, whilst Laurie advised her that each of his dad and mom have died, and he lived together along with his grandfather. In the middle, in their chat, Laurie invited Joe to dance. However, due to the fact she changed into shy, the two of them danced in a quiet vicinity, far from the crowd. While dancing, Meg, known as From the Window, Meg stated that she sprained her leg and couldn't walk home. Out of pity, Laurie then took them each home. When they were given home, whilst taking care of Meg's sprained leg, Joe's mom, whose call is Marmee, greeted Laurie kindly. Laurie smiled as he noticed the relaxation of Joe's own circle of relatives. All his life, he in no way felt such warm temperature of own circle of relatives as Joe's own circle of relatives confirmed to him. Days surpassed, and the Christmas arrived. That morning, Joe and her sisters gathered whilst telling every different their dreams. Meg stated that one day she desired to be an actress. Joe stated that she desired to be a writer, and Amy desired to be a well-known singer. Meanwhile, Beth's dream changed into now no longer as formidable as her sister's. She handiest desired so as to play piano, to entertain her sisters and mom each day. Hearing that made her sisters circulate and hugged her. An hour later, their mom confirmed, up. In 1861, in a small village in America, sisters have been a massing of their home. The oldest one is Meg, the second is Joe, the boy, 33, one is Amy, and the youngest one is Beth. That night, Meg and Joe had deliberated to go to a dance birthday celebration at Maggie's friend's house. When Joe changed into doing Meg's hair, she by accident burned Meg's hair. Thankfully, her carelessness didn't reason a whole lot trouble. It changed into Joe's first birthday celebration, so Maggie defined the do's and don'ts on the birthday celebration. She must in no way communicate too fast, flirt, or praised the lads too a whole lot, and plenty of different rules. During the birthday celebration, Joe didn't do something except watching her sister dance together along with her friends. Differently from Meg's sleek nature, Joe's character changed into the precise opposite. She is tomboyish, careless, and introverted. Bored with the birthday celebration, Joe then searched for a quiet vicinity to take a break. She then met a boy named Laurie. It turns out that Laurie is the son of a wealthy own circle of relatives who lived in the front of Joe's house. The of them then communicate at duration approximately every different. Joe advised him that her father changed into at war, whilst Lori advised her that each of his dad and mom have died, and he lived together, along with his grandfather. In the middle, in their chat, Lori invited Joe to dance. However, due to the fact she changed into shy, the two of them danced in a quiet vicinity, far, far from the crowd. While dancing, Meg, known as From the Window. Meg stated that she sprained her leg and couldn't walk home. Out of pity, Lori then took them each home. When they were given home, whilst taking care of Meg's sprained leg, Joe's mom, whose call is Marmee, greeted Lori kindly. Lori smiled as he noticed the relaxation of Joe's own circle of relatives. All his life, he in no way felt such warm temperature of own circle of relatives as Joe's own circle of relatives confirmed to him. Days surpassed and the Christmas arrived. That morning, Joe and her sisters gathered, whilst telling every different their dreams. Meg stated that one day she desired to be an actress. Joe stated that she desired to be a writer, and Amy desired to be a well-known singer. Meanwhile, Beth's dream changed into now no longer as formidable as her sister's. She handiest desired so as to play piano to entertain her sisters and mom each day. Hearing that made her sisters circulate and hugged her. An hour later, their mom confirmed, "Up." Seeing her daughter's sacrifice, Marmee turned into very moved. 3 days handed, however, Marmee had now no longer again from the sanatorium. That morning, Beth requested her sisters to accompany her to Pierre the Hummel family. Since their mom left for the sanatorium 3 days ago, the Hummel-owned circle of relatives ought to be ravenous due to the fact nobody gave them food. However, in place of listening to her, her sisters have been too targeted on their stuff. Beth determined to depart for the Hummel-owned circle of relatives' residence alone. Before she went there, she went to Lori's residence first. She gave a couple of footwear to Lori's grandfather as a thank you for assisting their own circle of relatives from time to time. After returning domestic from the Hummel-owned circle of relatives' domestic, her siblings confirmed her a piano. Turned out, Lori's grandfather gave it to her as thank you for her gift to him. He additionally dispatched a letter with it, announcing that the piano turned into not anything in comparison to Beth's gift. Beth turned into so moved, she then rushed to cross, then hugged the vintage man. Lori's grandfather stated that Beth reminded him of his past due daughter, while she turned into only a child. Amid the chat, Lori's grandfather found out that Beth turned into having a fever. At nighttime, Beth turned into tested with the aid of using the physician. The end result confirmed that Beth turned into laid low with flu, and in the event that they have been too past due to deal with her sickness, Beth's lifestyles will be threatened. The physician additionally defined that this disorder is without problems, transmitted to folks that had in no way had the flu, so for a while, Beth ought to be quarantined. Meanwhile, Amy, who had in no way had the flu, ought to live together along with her aunt for a while. 2 days later, Amy turned into nonetheless, staying at her aunt's residence. When she turned into painting, her aunt checked out her and observed her gracious nature. Her aunt then requested her if she desired to update Joe to return back to her region each week. Her aunt concept that in comparison to Joe, whose nature turned into tomboyish, Amy turned into extra elegant and is ideal to be a noblewoman and emerge as her successor. If Amy agreed to be a great girl, her aunt will assure her future. Hearing that, Amy, who turned into nonetheless innocent, smiled and thankfully agreed. On the opposite hand, Beth's situation appeared to be getting worse. Her sisters didn't recognize how to deal with her flu. They then determined to name their mom to head domestic to attend to their sister. Hours later, Marmee came. With her tenderness, she controlled to take control. It turned into past due that nighttime, however, Marmee turned into nonetheless looking after Beth. The subsequent morning, while Joe woke up, she panicked due to the fact she couldn't locate Beth in her bed. She ran downstairs calling for her mom. However, it turned out, Beth turned into there together, along with her. She turned into healed from her flu. Joe thankfully hugged her liked sister. Months later, Christmas arrived as soon as again, however extraordinary from final year's Christmas, this year, Laurie's grandfather joined in celebrating Christmas. 2 days later, Amy turned into nonetheless staying at her aunt's house. When she turned into painting, her aunt checked out her and discovered her gracious nature. Her aunt then requested her if she desired to date Joe to return back to her location each week. Her aunt idea that in comparison to Joe, whose nature turned into tomboyish, Amy turned into greater elegant and is ideal to be a noblewoman and come to be her successor. If Amy agreed to be an excellent girl, her aunt will assure her future. Hearing that, Amy, who turned into nonetheless innocent, smiled and fortuitously agreed. On the alternative hand, Beth's circumstance regarded Toby getting worse. Her sisters didn't understand how to deal with her flu. They then determined to name their mom to head domestic to attend to their sister. Hours later, Marmee came. With her tenderness, she controlled to take control. It turned into past due that night. Time, however, Marmee turned into nonetheless looking after Beth. The subsequent morning, whilst Joe woke up, she panicked due to the fact she couldn't locate Beth in her bed. She ran downstairs calling for her mom, however it turned out. Beth turned into there together, along with her. She turned into healed from her flu. Joe fortuitously hugged her loved sister. Months later, Christmas arrived as soon as again, however specific. From remaining year's Christmas, this year, Laurie's grandfather joined in celebrating Christmas. Suddenly, Laurie confirmed up with a surprise. He introduced Joe's father domestic from the hospital. Months surpassed, and nowadays turned into Meg and John's wedding day. However, in place of being satisfied just like the others, Joe turned into, in reality, sad. She then requested Meg to run away together along with her in order that Meg may want to chase her dream rather of having married. Hearing that, Meg smiled and stated that she should do that. Meg stated that it turned into her choice to marry and deserted her dream. Meg stated that being an unbiased woman doesn't suggest one's need to now no longer fall in love. She had made up her thoughts, and Joe had told Meyer her decision, despite the fact that deep down she couldn't take delivery of how her sister deserted her dream to get married. After the party, Laurie invited Joe to chat together, along with her, simply the two of them. At that moment, Laurie dared himself to propose to Joe. However, in preference to being satisfied, Joe became angry. She stated that she in no way desired to fall in love from the very start. She simply desired to be an unbiased girl who became a success in making her goals come true. For Joe, Laurie became only a brother to her. Laurie's coronary heart became broken. Before leaving, Laurie stated that irrespective of how tough she attempted to keep away from love, one day, Joe could finally fall in love. It isn't always people who reached for love, however the love itself selected wherein to stay. With his coronary heart broken, Laurie left from there. 7 years later, Joe had grown up and moved to New York City. She in no way met Laurie, considering that she became down his proposal. Joe became trying to provide her script to a large publishing employer in New York. However, due to the fact girls' emancipation became now no longer issued at that time, it became tough for girls to get jobs. Jo became compelled to admit to the editor that the paintings that he introduced became now no longer hers, however, instead her Malay friends'. When it became read, the editor became interested. He became inclined to submit the paintings so long as he became allowed to alternate the finishing of her writing to a satisfied finishing, because the editor felt that the finishing of the writing became too tragic and could without a doubt now no longer promote properly with inside the market. Like it or now, no longer. For the sake of money, Jo allowed her writing to be changed. After returning to her boarding house, Jo right now wrote a brand new tale subsequent to The Fireplace. However, due to the fact he became too focused, she didn't realize that her Get Dressed became on fire. Fortunately, warned her approximately her Get Dressed. That man is Friedrich, a younger lecturer at a campus in New York City, who additionally lived there. Shortly after, their landlord got here and informed Jo that her students have been awaiting her upstairs. Besides working as a writer, Jo additionally labored as a personal tutor. Before leaving, Friedrich requested why did she trouble to paintings that tough, while maximum of the girls her age favored to marry instead. Casually, Jo responded that she became now no longer at all interested by getting married. After all, that is only an aspect job. Jo's foremost purpose became to preserve satisfying her dream of turning into a famous AE book writer. Friedrich became surprised via way of means of her answer. That night time on the theater, Jo noticed Friedrich, who simply completed looking one of the shows. Jo became keen to talk with him once, more so she accompanied him to a bar. There, a person requested her to bop with the alternative traffic, consisting of Friedrich. Jo becomes so happy. She reminisced the memory, wherein she danced with Laurie years ago. The subsequent evening, Friedrich secretly dispatched a book and a letter to Jo. Friedrich wrote in his letter that he become curious approximately Jo's writings and would really like to peer them after she completed them. That letter made Jo happy. She made up her thoughts to complete her paintings that very nighttime. After staying up all nighttime writing, Jo finally completed her paintings. She right away went to go to Friedrich and confirmed him her paintings. She became sure that Friedrich would really like her writing. However, that become now no longer what befell. Friedrich criticized her writing all out and made Jo irritated. She then burst into anger and instructed Friedrich that he didn't apprehend what she read. Moreover, he in no way wrote whatever before. Jo right away left from there. On the alternative hand, with inside the metropolis of Paris, France, Amy become visible taking a walk together along with her aunt on their horse-drawn carriage. She had grown as much as be a stunning lady and become relationship. Laurie's friend, Fred. Amy instructed her aunt that she acquired a letter from her mom in the morning, announcing that Beth become badly sick. However, as opposed to sympathizing and telling her to go back domestic to peer her sister's condition, her aunt instructed her now no longer to fear an excessive amount of because her sisters had been there to attend to Beth. In the center of the road, Amy noticed Laurie, who befell to skip by. She known as his call and right away run to hug him. She hadn't visible him for years for the reason that she lived together along with her aunt. Before she left, Amy instructed Laurie her cope with and invited him to return back to go to if he had the time. A few days later, Jo additionally acquired a letter from Marmee approximately Beth's condition. Her response become extraordinary from Amy's. Without questioning much, she right away again domestic to test on her sister. When she noticed that the complete own circle of relatives had gathered besides Amy, she became annoyed. She grumbled all day. Her mom instructed her that Amy may have something to do. Her mom additionally cited that Amy had simply met Laurie and instructed her that they could come lower back domestic ultimately, while her commercial enterprise is finished after starting. Off her jacket, Joe rushed to take a look at Aunt Beth's condition. On one side, Joe became concerned approximately his sister's condition. However, she additionally concept approximately Marmie's phrases earlier. She became jealous due to the fact Amy became the one that Laurie met after years, now no longer her. Joe additionally desired to satisfy him once more and connect her beyond mistakes. That night, while John checked his savings, he became stressed as to why he ran out of cash in his savings. Meg then confessed that she had made a mistake through shopping for new garments for herself and the children. Meg attempted to apologize. John didn't say anything. However, that made Meg experience greater guilty. She stated that she became jealous while he noticed his Paul purchasing for new garments, so she bought a few too. Hearing that made John disappointed. Meanwhile, in France, Laurie got here to go to Amy Evan as she became handling her paintings. Laurie requested, while might she make and show off for her paintings? Amy responded she has stopped portrait due to the fact she found out that her portrait became now no longer fascinating Tosi. She's simply expecting Fred to recommend to her. Then, the two of them gets married. During the chat, Laurie became mesmerized through Amy. She seemed prettier than lower back once they have been younger. In the center of the chat, from the window, Amy noticed Fred coming. Before welcoming Fred, Amy requested Laurie how she seemed. While smiling, Laurie stated that she became stunning. Days passed when the two of them met once more. Laurie requested Amy to color him. After completing the portrait, Laurie by accident noticed in vintage portrait of him. Amy stated that he painted it again while they have been on holiday at the seaside 7 years ago. Laurie found out that Amy had emotions for him for years. However, he by no means found out that. At that very moment, Laurie without delay dared to advise to Amy and informed her to go away Fred if she nonetheless cherished him. Hearing that made Amy cry. She knew that she become only a launch after Joe rejected him. Amy without delay left him alone. The subsequent day, Amy's aunt informed her that Laurie had simply come to mention goodbye. Laurie had planned to transport to London and might now no longer come again once more. Amy didn't say anything. Deep down, Amy nonetheless had feeling for Laurie. However, she didn't have the coronary heart to harm Fred's coronary heart. Amy had a dilemma, till finally, inside the afternoon, while Fred proposed to her, Amy refused his proposal. Hearing Amy had rejected a person as wealthy as Fred, her aunt becomes shocked. On the alternative hand, Joe took Beth to the seaside. Joe informed Beth that she might forestall writing and become going to consciousness on looking after her. Hearing that, Beth disagreed. Beth stated that she desired her sister to retain writing if she desired her to be satisfied. After that, Joe become decided to write the high-quality novel tale he had ever written. The subsequent day, while Joe become looking after Beth, she noticed Meg and John in the front in their house. At first, Meg idea John become going to scold her aunts, more approximately the brand new garments she offered yesterday. However, it grew to become out that John become sorry and promised that he might try and discover more money in order that Meg may want to purchase the best things. She becomes so moved. She then stated that John failed to want to search for a new job. As a wife, she need to be greater grateful to just accept something his husband's circumstance become. From inside, Joe become touched to peer what befell among Meg and John. She become satisfied for them. However, suddenly, Beth had seizures. her sickness become a lot worse than what befell 7 years ago. That night, Joe slept subsequent to Beth, while crying and Stored protecting Beth's hand. Joe Stored telling her to stay alive and combat for her health. The subsequent morning, Joe turned into surprised while she couldn't locate Beth in her bed. She at once ran downstairs to the kitchen to search for her. There, she best observed her mother, crying approximately something. Turned out, Beth had died. After Beth's funeral, Joe packed up her things. Shortly after, Marmee got here, and the two of them then had a protracted chat, discussing Joe's dream to grow, to be a well-known writer. However, Joe failed to appear involved at all. She stated that she were by myself for too long and that she may want a person to lean on. She stated that if Laurie got here and proposed to her, she can be able to receive his suggestion proper away. The bestowment she wanted turned into to sense loved. She didn't even care if she ought to love the person or now no longer. Marmee instructed her that she nonetheless had loads in life, and it will virtually be a great deal happier if she ought to also love the person. Joe couldn't say whatever to respond. Meanwhile, Amy turned into approximately to head domestic, while suddenly Laurie confirmed up. While crying, Amy stated that she turned into sorry for now no longer coming in advance to peer Beth. She then invited Laurie to return back domestic. Together, however, Laurie refused. He had promised himself to leave far from Amy. Amy instructed him that she refused Fred's suggestion the day before. Hearing that made Laurie so happy. He kissed her proper away and proposed to her. In the evening, while Joe turned into sleeping, Laurie woke her up. He and Amy had simply arrived. Josmaled and hugged him. However, her smile at once disappeared while Laurie instructed her that he and Amy had simply married. Laurie instructed a protracted story, approximately his assembly with Amy, and the way they both determined to get married at the manor domestic. Joe turned into shocked. He went out to calm his thoughts. Outside, he noticed Laurie's grandfather. When Joe requested what he turned into doing, he defined that he didn't have the coronary heart to head inside. Since the first time he met Beth, he had taken into consideration his granddaughter. When he observed out that Beth had surpassed away, he turned into heartbroken. Hearing that, Joe held his hand and stated that despite the fact that she turned into now no longer Beth, she didn't thoughts, being his buddy too. After he calmed down, the two of them went inside. At night, Joe could not sleep. She stored remembering Beth's ultimate wish. Even though her writing could not treatment her, Joe turned into keen to supply her sister's ultimate wish. That very night, Joe began out writing her high-quality novel. For days, Joe continued to write without taking a rest, until finally, Joe's novel was finished. When it was time to send it to the publisher, Joe confidently wrote her name in there. She was sure, even though she was only a woman, she could be as great and even greater than men. The next day, while having breakfast, Joe's parents told her that someone was waiting to meet her. Turned out it was Friedrich. She was happy to be able to see him again. They spent the rest of the day together with the family. When Friedrich was about to go home, he said that he was sorry and said his purpose to criticize Joe's writing at that time was only because he wanted to motivate Joe to be able to write even better. Joe just smiled as she said that she didn't care about the problem anymore. She was just so happy to see Friedrich again. When Friedrich left, everyone asked why Joe didn't express her feelings. They knew from the look in her eyes, Joe must have liked him. Meg and Amy kept forcing her to chase him. They even took her to the station. At the station, when Joe met Friedrich, she immediately said that she loved Friedrich. Thankfully, Friedrich shared the same feeling with her. They then shared a very romantic kiss. Years later, their aunt passed away, but surprisingly, their aunt actually left all her wealth to Joe. Amy didn't look jealous at all. She was actually happy because, after all, Joe was still her sister. Joe then turned her aunt's big house into a school. All the family helped take care of the school, including Friedrich. Not only that, but the novel written by Joe was also in the process of printing. The novel she wrote for his late sister, Beth. The novel that told the story of her family's life journey. A novel that she entitled Little Women.